Welcome to the Growing Father podcast. My name is Felipe Freitas and I'm your host for today. And I've been thinking a lot about the need for us to go to war, right? Not going to war with another country or with our neighbor, or whatever it is that came to mind when I said that, but going to war with ourselves and with the people that are entrusted to us. So that may just be your children, or that could mean workers or people that you're in charge of leading, right? It could mean in your marriage, how many times we need to go to war there, right? And have tough conversations, be uncomfortable, make people uncomfortable. That is a need if we want to grow at all and to be able to enjoy those relationships. So I started thinking about that because I was thinking of how much, how many times people will talk about, especially when you talk to older people, they'll talk about how kids these days are soft, kids these days are lazy, kids these days can't handle anything. But it always gets me to think, who raised those kids? Right? And it always dawns on me that it's the same people that are complaining about how kids are that probably raised those kids. Right. I was at a coffee shop one time and I was sitting by this group of older men and they're all saying exactly that, how shitty kids these days are. And I'm looking and I'm like, you're talking about your kids. You raised them. Right. And so it seems to me that we are suffering the consequences of a generation that wanted to avoid suffering for their kids at all costs. They wanted to make life easy and cushy and avoid all the physical and emotional pain, right? And kill any risk that their children had to run into either one of those things. Parents became more concerned about being friends with their kids than to being good parents. Parents started using their kids as emotional crutches for themselves. Right? So you still hear, mom is sad, give mom a hug, right? Dad needs this, mom needs this. Your kids should not be a crutch. You're the adult and they're the children, and you should not be using them as emotional crutches. And, the measuring stick for, are you a good parent, became more of the relationship that you have with your children. How much does your children like you? How much does your child share with you? Then your child's development and their capacity to deal with life. Which is what it's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to have the standard of, I'm doing a good job because my kid's growing up, my kid's getting stronger, my kid's learning how to deal with the heartache and pain that life brings to them. And, the older I get, the more I appreciate my parents, the more thankful I am for my parents. Not so much when I was younger, which I think is something that I wish we could all change a little bit and appreciate our parents a little bit more. Back then, I imagine that life would be a little bit easier. But, things that my parents used to tell me, oh, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. I don't care if you like me. Right? Hearing those things from your parents could be hurtful at times, especially when other parents were bragging, or some kids were bragging about their parents being their buddy, right? And so that time sounded like something I would never say to my kids. But now I see how necessary that is. That can be, and that can be so obvious in some areas. If you have a boss, we all have had those bosses that want to be friends with everybody, that want to be nice to everybody. Right? And that creates some problems, because if you're a boss, or if you are a leader that's more concerned about how much people like you instead of the success of the mission, right, of the company that you're leading, you're going to have problems. When you have a boss that's more concerned about what happy hour looks like than what the success of the company looks like, you have some serious issues there, right? That's not a person that's leading. And if you're a parent that's more concerned about how your kids feel about you than doing the right thing for them, the success of your family, the success of your kids, you're going to have some serious issues. One, because children can be little manipulating assholes. And once they understand that that's your level, that you just want them to like you, and that when they don't, that's devastating to you, they will manipulate the hell out of that, right? So parenting to me is very similar to the boss situation, where you have to step back and say, this is my job, this is my mission, and I need to help these kids, right? We need to help our kids grow into capable, healthy, strong individuals that can deal with life, and not just deal with life, but to help them be contributors. Being contributors will be a huge part, because there is a certain joy that can only come from adding to your community, to your society. And I think we forgot that to a certain degree. We became very focused on what makes me happy, right? The conversation is now you have a bunch of people that, that whatever makes them happy. If your marriage doesn't make you happy anymore, you should leave. Right? Oh, so what if it's going to be devastating to your children? So what if it's going to cause a bunch of unintended consequences? Hey, be happy, right? And I think there's a much bigger call into life. There's much bigger joy and much more lasting effects in life when purpose is higher than happiness, right? When we choose the pain that we want to go through. And so, that's what we want for our kids, to help them grow stronger, not just blow smoke up their ass all the time and talk about how great they are, how smart they are, how beautiful they are, how, oh my God, if somebody doesn't see how great you are, it's their loss. Maybe it isn't. Maybe your kid has been an asshole to those other kids, right? Maybe there's a reason why your kid doesn't have any friends at school, right? Maybe your kid hasn't been very likable. Maybe your kid is not very nice to other kids. But when they come home and mom and dad just talk about how much of if they're lucky enough to have mom and dad at home, to talk about how precious of a snowflake they are, right? When sometimes you have to evaluate, hey, what are you doing? How good of a friend are you, and not just how good of friends are other people to them, right? If they get fired, it's not just, oh, your boss is a jerk. It's like, hey, how good of a job are you doing? We need to take a deep, long look into ourselves, because we used our kids as crutches for a long time to reaffirm our emotions or to fill in the gaps, right? And I think divorce has added a whole nother layer into this aspect, that parents, mom and dad, are competing for their children's affections and trying to be better. And instead of having people that support each other to be the best parent that they can be, that they can tag in when you have a problem, now you just have parents that want to be as nice as possible to their kids for the times they have with them. And so, we really need to step back into not needing our kids' emotional support as much. If you're a grown person, why do you need a 5-year-old to affirm you? You should not need that. You're there for them. You should be there to support them, not the other way around. Right? So let's grow up. Let's grow up and make sure that, we're not manipulating our kids to do what we want them to do just because we want to feel good. Don't go tell your kids that, mom needs a hug, and if she doesn't get a hug, you're going to be very sad. Grow up, right? Your kids need to understand that as life goes on, they're going to leave and you're going to be fine. Okay? So back to, I ranted there a little bit, but let's go back a little bit more to the idea of going to war with your kids. We need to be willing to have the difficult conversations and to make a stand with our kids when it's unpopular. It's easy to go along when the answer to everything is yes. So if you're a parent that says things like, my kid only eats mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, my kid spends all day on the iPad, I don't know what's wrong with kids these days. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with those kids these days. You are the problem. Okay? If your kids eat nothing but chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, you're the problem, because that's all you feed them. Because every time they say they don't like something, you go ahead and make mac and cheese and chicken nuggets for them. Okay? Kids who do not starve to death with a house full of food. All right? You're the problem. If your kids are out of control with how much time they spend on their electronics, you are the problem. Because you are the one that is supposed to give them those boundaries. You're the ones that's supposed to be willing to fight with them. You're the one that's supposed to be willing to take the temper tantrum and be the adult. Okay? Do the right thing for your kids. They might not like you. They might say, but all my friends, their parents let them do this. And you say what parents have been saying for 1,000 freaking years. I'm not everybody's parent. I'm not responsible for their kids. I don't know why they make the choices that they do, but I know why I do the choices that I do. And you should know why you do the choices. One topic that has come up quite often. So I have a 12-year-old. And, so I have to answer the phone question at least, a couple times a week. And my kid's one of the only kids in school that doesn't have a phone. And when I talk to parents, they tell me, and their reason to me is, I did not want my kid to have a phone. I think he's too young, but all the other kids have. And that's a shitty reason for you to do things for your kids. I understand if you think having the phone is going to be a helpful tool for your kid, hey, fantastic. I may not agree with you, but I understand that you're doing what you think is best for your kid, right? But if your answer is because that is the easiest path, because I was tired to say no, because I was, all other kids do it, because all other parents do it, then you're doing exactly the opposite of going to war for your kid and enduring that. Your kid cannot endure that. If your kid goes to school every day and everybody wants to have a phone, if your kid can buy a phone, they'll buy a phone. Because you're the adult, you're supposed to be the one that can endure that. You're the one that is supposed to say no, right? You are the parent. Otherwise, your kid's going to grow up to be a 10, 12, 15, 20, 25-year-old that you constantly have to make those decisions for them, and that their life is never in their control because they never learn boundaries, and they never learn that sometimes doing the hard thing is the right thing, right? Then you're going to have to call their boss and ask why they got fired. Why they didn't get the job, right? And we all know. We all know that that's not where we want to go. We want our kids to grow up, to be independent, to be strong, to be able to deal with heartache, right? And they're not going to if every time we just succumb to their most basic requests, to their most basic manipulation, right? And so I believe in the necessity for us to pursue excellence and discipline within ourselves, and then encourage our kids with it, right? When I read the 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson, one of the chapters that stood out, and maybe one of the only chapters that I remember from that book, because it always comes to mind, is that you should not allow kids, your kids, to do something that will make you dislike them. And I don't think it means, I don't take it anyway as oh, I'm not going to let my kids be into things that I don't like, right? Like if my kid likes a cartoon that I think is stupid, I'm not going to let my kids watch that. No, but I think it means that we can be the standard, or we can have some kind of guidance for what operating in society actually is. I hope you do. I hope as an adult you have a pretty good idea of how society is. I hope you understand that when you say something that you should follow through with your word. Otherwise, society is not going to look very kind to that. That when you say you're going to be somewhere on time, that you're there on time. That when you have a task, that you do it. That when you, that you don't just give up in life at the first sign of trouble, right? That you don't just abandon relationships because they're difficult. That you don't just abandon tasks or missions because they're difficult, but that you stick to it, right? That you're not just all about yourself. That when you're in a conversation, that you also listen. And so those are all things that we understand. And we understand even if we don't do it, because we don't like, we all have that friend that's always talking about their problems, and they're always problem people. Every day you talk to them, there's a new problem and a new thing. And nobody likes them, right? People avoid them. And we know we don't want to be those people, right? Sometimes we don't know we are those people, but it's our job to help our kids to have those good relationships, that they're not just people that take, but they're people that contribute to the group. The people that they are people that their friends are happy when they're around, right? So for example, the other day, it was me, my wife, my 7-year-old, my 12-year-old in the car. And my 12-year-old was beside himself he wouldn't stop talking. And not even, if you have a 10 or 12-year-old, not even talking about something they're excited, just talking with whatever comes in their mind without any kind of concern for what is, are people listening to me? Are people not listening to me? Does somebody else want to say something? Was somebody else having a conversation? And at some point I had to tell him, I said, buddy, you got to calm down. You have to chill out a little bit, and you have to take a couple steps back because you're just being obnoxious right now. You're just talking, people start talking, and you interrupt them, and you're being loud, and everything is, and it hurt his feelings a little bit. I could tell right away that it hurt his feelings, right? I was basically telling him, I don't want to listen to you right now anymore. And, from being around with parents for many years now, I would say that some parents, listen, not everybody are the parents from Bluey. All right. Your kids need to hear some hard truth at a time. I could tell that it hurt his feelings, and I decided to let that feeling sit a little bit. And later I talked to him, and I explained to him that my intention was not to hurt his feelings, but to help him understand that when we are in a group of people, we have to be mindful of the people that are around us. Why would I talk to somebody that is not listening, right? Why would I keep talking when the people that are around me may not be interested in what I have to say, right? So learn to pull back, learn to analyze what's happening so that you can be a pleasant person to be around and contribute and know hey, this conversation, this group of people is not about me talking for as long as I can, but adding value to the group. All right. So I think he understood, right? I told him, buddy, I love you. I'm having conversations with you that nobody else would have, because other people would just leave you. When you're annoying, people that don't have a stake in your life, they would just walk away. They would just not come to your house. They would just not invite you to their house, right? And there's a lot of people today that are wondering why they are not in certain circles, or they do not get invited to things, but they planted plenty of seeds in life for people to not want to, to want to be around them. So we need to help our kids navigate knowing how to act in those different circumstances, and I see too many parents that are very upset and seem very frustrated with their kids. And they're hoping that somebody's going to come to save them. They're hoping that somebody's going to fix their kids. So they put their kids in therapy. They put their kids in jujitsu. They put their kids in martial arts. They put their kids, they're hoping that the teachers will fix their kids. And let me tell you, it is your responsibility. I'm not saying that those things cannot be used as tools, but they should be used as tools, as opportunities for your kids to use the things they have been learned, or to be confronted with new situations. Not like, hey, professor or martial arts instructor, here, fix my shitty kid. My kid has no discipline. My kid doesn't listen. My kid is doing awful in school. Here, fix them. Because the answer to that when your kid's 18 is to send them to the military. My kid has no discipline. He has no future, right? So don't do that. You are your kids. You are the responsibility. The person responsible for your kids here, right? So those things can be great tools, but they're a disaster if you just expecting your kids to go to a jiu-jitsu class, and that coach will get the other 20 kids that the parents had the same idea, and they're going to fix them, right? Love jiu-jitsu, by the way, has, helped my kids understand many things, has helped my kids and myself a lot. But we have to be mindful that our kids are our responsibility, and that we need to make sure, that we're mindful of that, and that we are pursuing raising our kids, not hoping that they learn a lesson. Because let me tell you, if your kid's out of control, you put them in jiu-jitsu, the only lesson that you're going to learn is, holy shit, my kid's been completely out of control with me. And when I put them with other kids, they act like goddamn animals. And you hope that, this instructor or this teacher is going to fix your kid. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Those things are supposed to be an opportunity for your kid to experience more of life, and not for them to be fixed. All right. And most of the times, the same parents that do that with their expectation are the same parents that, once things get hard, once the teacher gets a little harder on their kid, they're going to pull their kid out because their kid doesn't like it anymore, because it's hard, because your kid doesn't want to do it. The same parents are going to go fight with teachers about how they're not fair to their kids. Let your kids deal with some of their own situations. All right. My 12-year-old last year, when he was in 5th grade, he came to me one day and he asked if he could, if I would go talk to the class to change his teacher. And I was like, wait a minute. Tell me more. What's going on here? It's like, I don't think my teacher likes me. And I have friends that their parents went and asked, and they were moved classes. And I told my kids, say, buddy, I don't like you most of the time, or half of the time. I don't like you all the time. What? You're going to ask somebody to change your parents? It's okay for people to not like you. It's okay that your teacher doesn't like you. And I don't even know if the teacher liked him or not. But instead of telling him how much I'm sure the teacher liked him, I prefer to help him deal with the reality that maybe the teacher didn't like him. Maybe the teacher did not. Right? I've had teachers that did not like me. And if it was reasonable or not, I know I had teachers that didn't like me. We all did. And I told him that I would be dead before I would switch him classes, because it is important for him to know how to deal with people that he doesn't like. that don't like him. It is important for him. He's going to have bosses, colleagues, team members, all sort of people that do not think that he's the most special snowflake in the world. And that comes back from, if your kids are not used to you not liking them at times, right? If they're not used to you having some level of conflict with them at times, they think that the whole world needs to adjust to them being uncomfortable. The whole world needs to like them. If somebody's not their friend, is that person, there's something wrong with that person, when that is not the reality at all, right? We all have the people that do not like us a whole lot. So it starts with us, right? It starts with us being willing to have those hard conversations, to endure those hard moments, okay? And I think in all that, we need to get back to our word as parents meaning something to our kids, right? There is no, more frustrating situation than when you're in a social setting and you hear a parent telling their kid, if you don't do this, if you don't stop, we're not going to go to the party. We're going to leave. We're going to do this. And you can see in the kid's face that they're used of their parents not doing jack shit. The kids know. The parents know. Everybody freaking knows. And you look like a goddamn idiot. Okay? So we need to go back to our word meaning something to our kid. If you say if your kid doesn't stop, you're going to leave, and your kid doesn't stop, you need to leave. You need to go. And look, I understand. It's a very hard change to make, because the longer you've been doing this, the more painful that situation is, the harder of a U-turn it will be. My personal advice, if that's you right now and you're tired and you feel tired of your kids, honestly, that you go and have a chat with them and apologize to them, okay? And say, hey, I know that mom or dad have not been honest to their word. They've not been true to their word. And many times this is what happens. But that's going to change. We're going to change that, right? And you're going to go, hey, when I say if you don't pick up your toys, you're not going to play video games on the weekend. God damn it, you're not going to play video games on the weekend if you don't pick up your toys. And that may be a painful little transition. But once your kid understands that you mean what you say, man, life gets easier. Because guess what? Then your kid also will know that you mean what you say when you say that you're going to be there for them. When you say that you're going to help them. When you say that you're going to support them. Because right now, you think that those words mean something, but the other words that you say don't mean anything. No. If somebody speaks the truth half of the time, that does not make them half trustworthy. That makes them untrustworthy. If your friend says that they're going to be there to help you move and they only show up half the time, they're not half reliable. They're unreliable. And that's not what you want. And it starts with the words that you say to your kids. So go back before you say something. Don't tell your kids that if they don't behave, you're going to cancel Christmas, or that you're not going to go to the vacation that you already paid for. You know you are. So don't say it unless you are willing to follow through. To follow through. If you tell your kid, this is what's for dinner, and if you don't eat this, you're not going to just go eat a snack after. When they don't eat that, don't let them go to a snack. Oh, but they said that they were hungry. They're going to live, okay? We live, in the richest country in the world where obesity is a much bigger issue than child starvation. Your kid's gonna be fine. All right, your kid, and if they want to, they can go back to the plate of food that they had before, right? So give them a real life scenario. Once you get fired, you don't get to go back and put words, back. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, you're gone, right? So there's real consequences that our kids are going to have to start to learn with. And unless we're willing to be the first, stop to those mistakes, we're willing to be those first that, to inflict a little bit of that first pain. Hey, this is a very small consequence for you being a slob. And I'm going to, use that pain so you can learn, so that when you grow up, you don't find yourself living alone and without being able to be in a relationship because you're a slob. So we need to make the decision. Our kids, if you have a 5-year-old, a month seems like an eternity to that kid. You know, because hopefully you've been alive for long enough that you need to make some of those decisions, right? That life is not all, fun and games, that you can just do whatever you want all the time and then get what you want in the end. You're going to reap what you sow. And if all that you sow is, I just want to feel good, eventually, you're going to have to pay the piper there, right? So let's be honest with our kids. Let's help them understand, and let's be willing to go to war, to have those hard conversations and hard times with them. And guys, that applies to the same thing. The same thing applies to some of you. Like, you've let your relationship with your spouse go to shit because you refuse to have conversations with them, like honest conversations. You refuse to have those hard conversations of things that are unacceptable in your relationship, but you've just happy wife, happy life. You need to stop, because that is just ruin your marriage. That's ruin your relationship and your kids, right? That's ruin your job, right? And your capabilities as a leader. And let's be honest, if that's you right now, there's a lot of misery, and hey, if that's working out for you and life is fantastic, hey, fantastic. That's great, right? If life is being fantastic for you, hey man, you go for it. But if those things are eating you up from the inside, you're going to have to learn to have those hard conversations. All right? So thank you for listening to the Growing Father podcast. We're not just going to talk about parenting. As a father and business owner, we're also going to talk about some of the challenges that we face as human beings in all those areas, and balancing those things, and sharing some helpful information. We're going to interview some cool people that are going to help us experience more of life and contribute more and become more valuable in our relationships and our society. All right. Thank you for listening. Share this with somebody that you think would benefit with the advice. And I hope to hear some feedback from you guys.